At 2 in the morning, the apartment in Manhattan's Upper East Side was deathly silent, with only the monotonous, mechanical whoosh-whoosh sound of the breast pump, like a suffocating countdown. I stared at the translucent milk storage bottle in front of me, watching the milky white liquid slowly increase drop by drop, my body trembling slightly from the high fever caused by mastitis. This was my 12th day postpartum, my episiotomy wound still aching dully. The painkiller had just worn off, and that sharp tearing sensation seemed to remind me of exactly what I had sacrificed to give Justin this daughter. The phone screen on the kitchen island suddenly lit up, piercing through the darkness. The incoming call labeled U.S. Department of State Bureau of Consular Affairs was like a bolt of lightning heralding destruction. I didn't answer immediately. As a senior financial analyst who had worked at Goldman Sachs for 7 years, my professional instincts made me naturally wary of sudden late-night calls. Usually, they meant a crash. I unplugged the tube from the breast pump, took a deep breath, and pressed the answer button. "Is this Mrs. Anna Miller?" The voice on the other end of the line was formal and cold. "This is the U.S. Interest Section in Syria. I regret to inform you that your husband, Mr. Justin Miller, was involved in a suicide bombing attack targeting a humanitarian aid vehicle in the border region. He is currently receiving emergency treatment at a temporary field hospital in the area, and his condition is critical." My fingers gripping the phone suddenly tightened, knuckles turning white. "You must have made a mistake." My voice was hoarse, so calm that I didn't even sound like a wife who had just learned her husband was in danger. "Justin is in London. He went to attend JP Morgan's Global Financial Summit. His flight was BA 178. It should be 7 in the morning London time right now. He should be having breakfast at the hotel." There was silence on the other end of the line for 2 seconds. Then came the sound of papers being flipped through. "Mrs. Miller, we've confirmed his identity, both passport and fingerprints match. He was indeed at the Syrian border. There was also a female volunteer traveling with him, named Rebecca Bennett. She sustained minor injuries." Rebecca. Those words hit like a bullet, precisely piercing through my last remaining line of rational defense. That name. She was his white moonlight from college. That so-called wandering artist who claimed her soul belonged to the wilderness, forever on the road. In that instant, all the fragments about Justin's business trip pieced together in my mind. The way he couldn't even look me in the eye before he left, his Samsonite suitcase that had to stay locked, and his unusual insistence on not letting me see him off at the airport. He had lied to me, while I was enduring the excruciating pain of a 4th-degree tear, facing newborn jaundice and all night crying all by myself. My husband Justin, the man who swore he would protect me for life, had forged his itinerary, flown halfway across the globe to the most dangerous war zone in the world, all just to accompany his ex-girlfriend. "Is he still alive?" I asked. "Alive for now, but his leg was severely damaged by shrapnel and he may face amputation. The local medical conditions are extremely poor, and we need to arrange an air ambulance immediately to transfer him to Germany or back home." "But Mrs. Miller, this requires a family member to sign a financial guarantee immediately. The cost starts at around $150,000. Also, given that it's a do-not-travel zone with the highest warning level issued by the State Department, I'm not sure if your insurance covers this." "I understand." I cut him off. "But I'm breastfeeding right now. I'll contact you later." The moment I hung up, I didn't scream hysterically. I just felt cold, that kind of chill seeping out from the marrow of my bones, even more biting than the air conditioning in the operating room. Immediately after, my phone was bombarded with calls. First my mother-in-law, then my father-in-law, then Justin's sister, who only ever reached out for money. The names on the screen jumped frantically, just like the red limit down boards when the stock market crashes. I answered my mother-in-law's call. "Anna, oh my God, something happened to Justin. The embassy called us." My mother-in-law's shrill wailing made my eardrums ache even without speakerphone on. "Do something. Don't you know a lot of people? Arrange a plane to get him. If my son dies there, I won't go on living either." "Mom, calm down." I tried to use logic to shut her up. "It's 2 in the morning. Calm down. How can you be so cold-blooded? That's your husband. That's Lily's father." My mother-in-law was hysterical on the other end of the phone. "I know you have money. Isn't that Long Island house of yours worth a lot? And your stocks, sell them now. As long as it can save Justin, spend whatever it takes. Sign the papers now, immediately." I listened to her ranting, but my gaze fell on the baby monitor not far away. On the screen, my daughter Lily, born less than 2 weeks ago, was fast asleep. She was so small, so fragile, completely unaware that her father had just blown himself to a bloody pulp for another woman. "That house is my premarital property. I pointed out calmly. Besides, Mom, do you know why Justin was in Syria? The other end of the phone suddenly choked into silence for a moment. He was there for work. My mother-in-law was obviously lying too. Or she was deceiving herself. He was earning money for this family. No, he went to find Rebecca. I cruelly pierced through this thin veil. That woman was in the car too. Justin abandoned his wife who had just given birth and his newborn daughter to play knight in shining armor in a war zone. Now, you want me to sell my assets to save a man who abandoned his wife and child for his ex-girlfriend? That's still a human life. That's the man you loved for 7 years. My father-in-law grabbed the phone and roared, "Anna, you can't be this heartless." He was just confused for a moment. "But he's dying now. If you don't save him, the whole world will curse you behind your back." Love. Yeah, I loved him for 7 years. For this love, even though I feared childbirth, feared dying on the delivery bed like my mother did, I still gritted my teeth and got pregnant for him. For this love, I used the salary I fought for on Wall Street to support this so-called middle-class elite family, letting him drive a Tesla with dignity and maintain that illusory sense of superiority. But what was the result? My love, in his eyes, was probably just a black card that could be overdrawn at any time, an insurance policy that would bail him out no matter what trouble he caused. I glanced down at my breasts, which were swollen and hard as stones. The pain made me intensely aware of my surroundings. I didn't say I wouldn't save him. I said flatly into the phone, "But I'm currently in my postpartum confinement, and the doctor strictly forbade any emotional fluctuations. As for the transfer fees, since he got injured for Rebecca, why not have Rebecca pay? Doesn't she pride herself on being a great international humanitarian? She doesn't have any money. She's an artist." My mother-in-law shrieked. "Then there's nothing I can do," I responded coldly. "My finances are all in a trust right now, and unfreezing them takes time. Since you all love him so much, why not mortgage your house in New Jersey? It's only worth $300,000, but it should be enough for a down payment." After saying that, without waiting for any more curses from the other end, I hung up directly and switched my phone to airplane mode. The world was finally quiet. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at Manhattan's dazzling yet cold nightscape outside. I recalled what that State Department official had said: insurance might not cover it. As someone with an actuary background, I knew all too well what that meant. Traveling to a level 4 warning zone qualified as deliberately placing oneself in danger, and the vast majority of life insurance and premium medical plans would list it as an exclusion clause. In other words, every single cent Justin incurred over there would have to come straight out of our pockets. I don't mind spending money on family, even if it means going bankrupt. But if it's to foot the bill for my husband and his mistress, even a single cent feels like an insult to my intelligence. I turned and walked toward the study, opening my MacBook. The screensaver was a photo from our wedding, Justin smiling so refined and elegant, as if he were the most devoted man in the world. Now I could see it was nothing but a masterfully crafted mask. I didn't cry. I didn't even shed a single tear. I opened all the bank account portals. Along with Justin's iCloud account, the one had changed the password on, but ID still cracked through Cloud Sync. Since this marriage had already become a bad debt, I needed to strip out all my performing assets before declaring bankruptcy and liquidation. Justin Miller, you want to play Romeo? Fine, but don't think you'll do it on my dime. In the study at 3 in the morning, only the sound of keys clicking echoed through the empty room. I skillfully logged into American Express backend and downloaded the transaction history for the past 5 years on Justin's supplementary card. As the primary cardholder, I had the right to monitor every transaction, but ID never scrutinized them before because of so-called trust and respecting privacy. Now, trust was like that blown-up rescue vehicle, nothing but a pile of scrap metal. The Excel spreadsheet on the screen was packed with entries, the red numbers like shocking bloodstains. Global Children's Art Foundation. This was a payee that appeared with extremely high frequency, $2,000 every month, like clockwork, and on special occasions, like Valentine's Day or Rebecca's birthday, the amount would skyrocket to $5,000 or even $10,000. I moved my cursor over those rows of data and let out a cold laugh. Rebecca Bennett, that woman who claimed to treat money like dirt and only pursued spiritual freedom. Turns out her freedom was billed monthly, and the rate wasn't cheap. I followed the trail and, through some inside connections at the IRS, looked up this foundation's registration information. Just as I expected, it was a private account not registered under tax-exempt provisions, and the registered address was none other than Rebecca's so-called bohemian-style loft apartment in Brooklyn. This wasn't just cheating, this was tax fraud, money laundering, and blatantly stealing from mine and Lily's future. What made me even more sick was a transfer record from last Tuesday, $50,000. The memo read, "Emergency equipment procurement." Back then, I was rolling around in bed from unbearable contraction pains, begging Justin not to leave, begging him to come with me to the hospital to wait for delivery, but he kept anxiously staring at his phone, telling me there was a major problem with the London project, and if he didn't go handle it, we'd be facing a breach of contract. Turns out, that major project that made him abandon his wife who was about to give birth was to buy his mistress bulletproof vests and satellite phones, so they could be safer during their romantic warzone elopement. I felt my stomach churning violently, that visceral disgust overpowering my physical pain. I grabbed the ice water next to me and gulped down a big mouthful, forcing myself to stay calm. This $50,000, plus all the scattered transfers before, had already exceeded $300,000 in total. That was the down payment we'd saved to buy Lily a house in a good school district, money we'd originally planned as her Ivy League education fund. He took his daughter's formula money to fund another woman's poetry and faraway dreams. Just then, the doorbell rang. It wasn't the sound of a food delivery, it was urgent, aggressive pounding on the door. I glanced at the Ring camera by the door, and there on the screen were my in-laws, along with Justin's sister Jessica with her smoky eye makeup. They probably couldn't get through to me on the phone earlier and drove straight over from New Jersey overnight. I closed my laptop, took a deep breath, and straightened my silk robe. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. "Anna, how could you turn off your phone?" My mother-in-law was like an enraged lioness. If I hadn't been standing behind the threshold, she probably would have pounced on me and torn me apart. "Do you know how worried we were on the way here? What if there was news from the embassy and they couldn't reach you? This is murder." "I'm breastfeeding," I said, looking at the group of people expressionlessly, "and I don't think my phone signal will determine whether or not the bomb explodes." "Cut the passive-aggressive crap." My father-in-law pointed at my nose, spittle nearly spraying onto my face. "The hospital just called and said if we don't wire the money immediately, they won't send the helicopter. That's $150,000. Transfer the money right now." "I don't have the money," I said flatly. "No money? Who do you think you're fooling?" Jessica shrieked. "You work at Goldman Sachs with an annual salary of hundreds of thousands, plus your house. How could you possibly have no money?" "My brother said all the money at home is managed by you. You just want to watch my brother die so you can take all the assets for yourself, don't you?" "Jessica, watch your words." I glanced at her coldly. "You're an adult now. You should know that defamation can be prosecuted. As for the money," I turned around and picked up a stack of documents I had already printed out from the cabinet in the entryway, the key parts filtered from that Excel spreadsheet earlier. "Your precious son, your precious brother, has drained this family dry over the past 5 years." I threw that stack of papers at my father-in-law's flushed face. The papers scattered all over the floor, with every transfer record circled in red pen, clearly pointing to that woman named Rebecca. $324,680. I reported a number precise down to the single digit. "This is how much Justin has given that artist in sponsorship fees over the years. This money should have been used to buy insurance for Lily, to repair the roof of the Long Island house, to buy retirement insurance for you too, but he spent it all on charity." My father-in-law picked up the papers from the ground, his hands starting to tremble violently. My mother-in-law snatched one, glanced at it twice, and her face instantly turned deathly pale. This can't be," my mother-in-law murmured to herself, trying to deny it. "Justin is a good boy. How could he possibly?" "Numbers don't lie, Mom," I interrupted her. "If you don't believe me, you can check for yourselves. Right now, I only have less than $5,000 left in my account. Not even enough to pay Lily's postpartum nanny fee for next month. If you want that $150,000 in emergency money, I'd like to know where to find it too." That vixen must have tricked him. Jessica was still talking tough. "My brother is so honest. He must have been drugged by that woman." "Maybe," I shrugged, not caring at all, "but the result is the money's gone. Now there are 2 options in front of you. First, make Rebecca cough up the money she swallowed. Second, like I said before, sell the old house in New Jersey." "No, that's our retirement home," my mother-in-law screamed, her protective instincts instantly sobering her up. "Where will we live if we sell it?" "Then there's nothing I can do." I spread my hands, showing a helpless expression. "Then you can only pray that Miss Rebecca's humanitarian organization will be merciful enough to crowdfund a stretcher for him." You vicious woman." My father-in-law was shaking with rage, raising his hand to slap me. I didn't dodge, just looked at him coldly, my gaze sharp as a knife. "If you actually land that slap, I'll call the police immediately." In America, assaulting a breastfeeding mother, And under circumstances where your son is suspected of major marital property transfer and fraud, how do you think the judge will rule? My father-in-law's hand froze in midair, his face contorted with anger, looking utterly ridiculous. Get out. I spat out the words, my voice not loud, yet carrying an undeniable authority. Before I change my mind and sue you for trespassing, take your garbage and get out of my house. With that, I didn't hesitate to slam the heavy security door shut, blocking out all the curses and wails of that family. Leaning against the door, I slowly slid down to sit on the floor, my body feeling slightly weak from the confrontation just now. Of course I still had money. As a professional investor, I would never put all my eggs in one basket. My private investment account holds plenty of cash, and my cryptocurrency wallet still has untouched Bitcoin. But why should I take it out? That's my money. It's the lifeboat I saved for myself to prevent moments like this. I would never use my lifeboat to save a sinking wreck that's doomed because the captain scuttled it himself. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text message from an unfamiliar international number. Rebecca, Justin is awake. He wants to hear your voice. Please, answer the phone. He's really in pain. I stared at those words, as if I could smell that woman's nauseating green tea bitch sent through the screen. Pain. He hasn't seen anything yet. This is just the beginning. I didn't reply, but directly blocked that number. Then, I called my private lawyer. David, sorry to bother you so late. Yes, I have something urgent. I looked at the gradually lightening sky outside the window, my gaze colder than the dawn. Help me draft a document. I want to sue Justin Miller for squandering marital assets, and apply to freeze all remaining assets under his name, including his pension account. Also, help me prepare an irrevocable divorce agreement. Grounds: married single parenting, and irreparable moral defects. Over the next few days, my life seemed to be torn into two parallel worlds. One was the reality filled with the smell of formula, diapers, and baby cries. Lily seemed to sense the unusual atmosphere at home and became especially clingy, only willing to sleep if held in my arms at all times. I held her, pacing in circles around the apartment, watching the leaves in Central Park outside the window turn from verdant green to withered yellow, just like the vitality of this marriage rapidly fading away. The other world was the raging storm that had erupted online. My in-laws clearly hadn't learned any lesson from that night's confrontation. Instead, they chose the most stupid and most vicious method: cyberbullying. Jessica posted a long article on Facebook and Instagram titled "The Cold-Blooded Wall Street Wife. Husband Risked His Life for Love, Yet She Stood By and Watched Him Die." The article was accompanied by a retouched photo of Justin at a London financial summit, next to a picture of him in a field hospital, covered in bandages, barely clinging to life. The strong visual impact instantly ignited public outrage. Under her pen, Justin was portrayed as a lone hero who ventured into danger to save war orphans, while I was the vampire who only cared about money, not people sitting in a mansion yet refusing to pay a single cent for life-saving expenses. Our whole family is pooling money together, even preparing to sell our only retirement home. Yet his wife, that Goldman Sachs elite, is at home drinking red wine and won't even answer the phone. At the end of the article, there was even a link to a crowdfunding website, titled "Help This Hero Come Home." In an instant, my DM inbox was flooded. Why don't you just go die, you woman? Cough up the money. That's your husband's life. I found it. She lives in the Upper East Side. The address is. Someone even dug up my LinkedIn account and started emailing Goldman Sachs HR department, demanding they fire this morally corrupt employee. When David called, there was a hint of worry in his voice. Anna, things aren't looking good. The company's PR department has already received calls from several reporters. Although this is a private matter, in finance, reputation is everything. If this doesn't die down soon, compliance might want to have a talk with you. I know, I said calmly while changing Lily's diaper, phone wedged between my ear and shoulder. David, is that lawyer's letter ready? Ready, can be sent anytime. Wait a bit longer. I looked at that little bottom with red marks from the diaper, an uncontrollable rage welling up inside me. Let the bullet fly a little longer. What I wanted wasn't just to prove my innocence, I wanted complete, devastating destruction. Since they wanted to play the public opinion game, I'd show them what real information asymmetry looked like. That night, after coaxing Lily to sleep, I opened my laptop. I didn't respond to any of the abuse. Instead, I logged into an anonymous financial expose account with millions of followers, something I'd casually started running years ago to vent work stress, never expecting it would now become the sharpest weapon in my hands. I only posted one image, and a short piece of text. The image is a collage. On the left is a screenshot of the State Department's Level 4 warning for Syria. with the glaring red "Do Not Travel" text. On the right is Justin's travel insurance claim denial letter, along with the transfer record for $50,000 spent on a bulletproof vest and satellite phone, with the recipient clearly showing Rebecca Bennett. The caption reads, "Hero, or cheating husband. While you thought he was fighting for all humanity, he was taking the $300,000 college fund saved for his daughter and bringing his ex-girlfriend to play real-life Call of Duty in a war zone. Now that things went south, he expects the wife who just gave birth to sell the house and foot the bill. Stop insulting the word humanitarianism. This is scumbagitarianism." This revelation was like a depth charge, instantly igniting the entire social network. The tide of public opinion began to subtly shift. Right after that, I released the second wave of hard evidence. There were several video clips extracted from the Ring doorbell camera and indoor security cameras at home. Video 1. The timestamp was 2 weeks ago, the night I went into labor. In the footage, I was in so much pain I was kneeling on the floor, amniotic fluid running down my thighs and pooling everywhere, my face pale as I begged Justin to take me to the hospital. But Justin stood at the entryway, clutching his passport and that locked suitcase tightly, saying impatiently, "Anna, stop making a fuss. It's just Braxton Hicks contractions. The meeting in London is really important. I have to leave right now. Just get yourself an Uber." With that, he slammed the door and left without looking back. Video 2. It was the same night, just 2 minutes after he left. The hallway surveillance camera caught that he didn't go downstairs immediately, but hid in the stairwell making a phone call, although I couldn't hear what the other person was saying. The expression on his face showed a tenderness and urgency I had never seen before. "Rebecca, don't be scared, I'm already out. The plane tickets are booked. Well, transfer in Istanbul, bulletproof vest. Don't worry, I bought them all. The most expensive brand." These 2 videos completely tore apart the hero mask that Justin and my in-laws had carefully crafted. The netizens who had been sympathizing with Justin and cursing me instantly exploded. "Oh my God, making his wife in labor take an Uber to the hospital by herself. Is this something a human being would do? So he went to see his mistress, under the guise of charity work. That's disgusting. That woman named Rebecca is no good either. Knowing full well his wife was about to give birth and still seducing him to go to a war zone. Give the money back to his wife and child. That's the baby's formula money." Jessica's account was instantly overwhelmed, and all that previous abuse came back to bite them tenfold. The crowdfunding link on that website was also reported and taken down. Not only did they not raise a single cent, but they also had to return the few $1,000s they had scammed before. I watched the comments frantically refreshing on the screen, yet felt no satisfaction in my heart, only sorrow. I tore open these once most private, most painful scars and displayed them bleeding for the whole world to see, just to prove that I didn't owe that man anything. This in itself was an immense tragedy. At that moment, my phone rang. It was from my father-in-law. This time, his voice no longer had the arrogance from before, only the trembling of exasperated fury. "Anna, are you crazy? How could you post those videos online? You're going to ruin Justin, ruin this family." I let out a cold laugh. From the moment Justin walked out that door with his suitcase, this family was already ruined. I just put up a tombstone on the ruins, telling everyone what filthy things are buried here. Delete them now, right now, or I'll sue you for invasion of privacy. Go ahead and sue, I said without a hint of fear. And by the way, I've already formally filed a lawsuit with the court, demanding the recovery of the over $300,000 in marital assets that Justin illegally transferred to Rebecca. If you still want to keep that crappy house in New Jersey, you'd better pray Rebecca still has the money to pay me back. My father-in-law was so furious he couldn't speak, and in the end could only hang up in impotent rage. Putting down my phone, I walked over to the crib. Lily was still sleeping soundly, her long eyelashes casting a shadow on her face. "Baby," I gently stroked her little face. "Mommy isn't cold-blooded. Mommy just doesn't want you to end up like a beggar someday, paying for your daddy's philandering debts." I knew the real war had just begun. Justin didn't die, according to the latest news. With the help of a local NGO, he was still transported back to the United States, although because he couldn't afford an air ambulance, he could only take a cramped commercial airline stretcher seat, and had to transfer 3 times along the way, causing his wound to become severely infected. But he still came back, with that leg that had to be amputated, and Rebecca, who was still completely unharmed yet claimed to have suffered severe psychological trauma. They came back together. Thanksgiving is coming. This is a holiday about reunion and gratitude. I think I should prepare a big gift for them too. A Thanksgiving gift that will make them remember it for the rest of their lives. I dialed David's number. "David, Book me a ticket to Boston. I'm going to see that old classmate of mine who's a judge and the best at handling property division cases. Also, help me find out exactly where Justin is being placed after returning to the country. Are you going to see him? David asked. No. I looked at the gloomy sky outside the window. I'll wait for him to come beg me. Also, I added, help me contact a friend at the tax bureau. Since Miss Rebecca has received so many charitable donations, I think the IRS will be very interested in her tax returns. After hanging up, I walked to the mirror and looked at the woman inside, slightly haggard, but with eyes more determined than ever before. Anna, welcome back to the battlefield. This time, your opponent isn't complex financial models, but human hearts. But what's the difference? When it comes to interests, human hearts are often easier to predict than models. In November in New York, the air began to fill with the scent of cinnamon and roasted turkey. This was the holiday Americans cherished most, Thanksgiving. According to the usual tradition, this should have been a day for the Miller family to gather. Justin would be in the kitchen pretending to carve the turkey. My mother-in-law would bring her signature pumpkin pie, and my father-in-law would be yelling at the football game from the couch. And me, the hostess responsible for footing the bill and cleaning up the mess, would smile and accept their cheap praise, feeling a kind of illusory happiness. But this year, everything was different. Justin was back. After 3 layovers and 2 debridement surgeries for wound infections, he was finally lying in the guest room at my in-laws' house in New Jersey. His right leg had been amputated below the knee, apparently because the delay during the layover in Turkey had missed the optimal treatment window, causing the gangrene to spread. That confident, high-spirited finance elite who used to spend half an hour every day styling his hair had now become a disabled man who could only lie in bed, reeking of disinfectant and decay. My mother-in-law called me, her tone surprisingly soft. Anna, today is Thanksgiving. No matter what, you should bring Lily to see Justin. He really misses you too. Also, Miss Rebecca is here. She says there are some misunderstandings she wants to explain to you in person. Rebecca is there too. This is just perfect. Saves me the trouble of delivering this big gift separately. Okay, I agreed without hesitation. I'll be there on time, at 5 in the afternoon. I drove the Grand Cherokee that had just been fitted with bulletproof glass and parked in front of my in-laws' house. I didn't bring Lily. This kind of battlefield wasn't suitable for an innocent child. I carried an exquisite gift bag, but inside wasn't red wine or presents, it was a thick stack of documents. Pushing open the door, the atmosphere inside was so eerie it was suffocating. A huge roasted turkey sat on the dining table, but no one had touched their knives and forks. Justin lay on a makeshift hospital bed in the living room, his face sallow, his eyes hollow, his right pant leg hung empty, like a giant symbol of irony. And Rebecca, that legendary soulmate, was sitting by his bedside at this moment, peeling an apple. She wore a bohemian-style maxi dress, her face done up in exquisite Namacup makeup, with that deliberately practiced, pitifully delicate redness at the corners of her eyes. Seeing me come in, Rebecca immediately set down the apple in her hand and stood up. Sister Anna, she called out timidly, her voice so soft it could drip water. You're finally here. Justin and I have been waiting for you. I ignored her, didn't even give her a proper glance. I walked straight to the dining table and set the gift bag in my hand on it with a dull thud. Happy Thanksgiving. I looked around at everyone in the roomy father-in-law, my mother-in-law, Jessica, and Justin, who wanted to speak but was stunned into silence by my aura. Anna, it's good you're here. My mother-in-law tried to break the deadlock, forcing a smile. Sit down, sit down. We're all family. If there's any misunderstanding, let's just talk it out. Misunderstanding. I raised an eyebrow, pulled out a chair and sat down, my movements as elegant as if I were attending a board meeting. I also think there are many misunderstandings that need to be clarified. Since Miss Rebecca is also here, let's start settling the accounts from the very first one. Anna, Justin finally spoke up, his voice hoarse like a broken bellows. Don't be like this. Rebecca is innocent. She's just too kind-hearted, wanting to do some good. Kind-hearted. I laughed out loud. So kind-hearted that she needs to take $2,000 in living expenses from our joint marital account every month. So kind-hearted that she needs to pose in a $5,000 Arc'teryx jacket in a war zone. Rebecca's face instantly flushed red, and tears began to well up in her eyes. Anna, how can you say that? That money was all to help those children caught in the war. We were just... Shut up. I took out a document from my bag and threw it directly in front of her. This is a copy of the investigation notice from the IRS. I've already filed a report under my real name against your Global Children's Art Foundation for suspected tax fraud and illegal misappropriation of funds. According to the transfer records I provided, Out of this $300,000+, only less than $1,000 was actually donated to charity. The rest all went into your own pocket, turning into the designer bags in your closet, your travel photos on Instagram, and this so-called bohemian dress you're wearing right now. Rebecca's face instantly turned deathly pale. She trembled as she picked up the document, her hands shaking like a leaf. This can't be. I'm not done yet. I pulled out another document, this time handing it to my in-laws. This is Justin's life insurance and health insurance claim denial notice, because he knowingly went to a war zone that was a level 4 warning area. It constitutes intentional insurance fraud. The insurance company not only refuses to pay out, but also reserves the right to sue him for insurance fraud. In other words, I looked at the two petrified elders and said word by word, the follow-up treatment costs for his leg, the cost of fitting a prosthetic limb, and the income loss due to losing his ability to work won't get a single penny. Not only that, he also owes Turkish and German hospitals a total of €80,000 in bills, and you'll have to pay all of it yourselves. How could this happen? My mother-in-law slumped in her chair, her gaze vacant. We've already mortgaged the house. Where would we get the money? That's your problem. I responded coldly. I'm not mainly here today to talk about this. I'm here to deliver this. I took out the last document from the Baga divorce agreement, along with an accompanying civil lawsuit. Given that Mr. Justin Miller, during the course of the marriage, engaged in significant financial infidelity and unilaterally squandered marital assets to support a third party, resulting in severe damage to family assets. According to New York state law, I have the right to demand a larger share in the division of property. I pushed the agreement in front of Justin, the tip of the pen pointing at the clauses on it. Our Long Island property goes to me. Your Tesla goes to me to offset the debt. As for your already emptied 401k retirement account, they'll file to freeze it until I recover that $300,000. Also, regarding Lily's custody, given your current physical condition, financial situation, and moral standards, I don't think you're fit to have custody. You'll get visitation rights once a month, and of course, it must be conducted under my supervision. Justin stared fixedly at the agreement, his one intact hand gripping the bedsheet tightly, veins bulging on the back of his hand. Anna, do you really have to be this ruthless? He looked up, eyes red-rimmed, his gaze filled with resentment. Look at me now. I've lost my legs. Can't you at least for Lily's sake? For Lily's sake. I shot to my feet, hands planted on the table, looking down at him from above. It's precisely for Lily's sake that I didn't leave you with nothing, buried in debt, and thrown in prison. Justin, you should be grateful I'm still leaving you a shred of dignity. As for you, I turned to look at the trembling Rebecca. You can choose to cough up the money you've swallowed, or wait for the IRS to show up, seize your apartment, and send you to federal prison to continue your artistic creations there. Don't think you can guilt-trip me with true love. In America, true love isn't worth shit, but IRS bills are worth plenty. With that, I didn't give anyone a chance to argue back, grabbed my bag, turned around, and left. Behind me came my mother-in-law's heart-wrenching cries, along with the sound of my father-in-law smashing plates. Anna, you cold-blooded woman, you'll get what's coming to you. I stopped at the doorway and looked back at this pathetic group of people. What's coming to me? I laughed. True retribution is when you think you can recklessly squander someone else's love and trust, and life slaps you right back. Isn't Justin's current fate the best retribution? I walked out the front door and took a deep breath of the cold but fresh air outside. On the street, the neighbors had already lit up their Christmas lights. Before I knew it, the first snow began to fall. I got into the car and sent David a message. Done. Get ready to file the lawsuit. Starting the car, I took one last look in the rearview mirror at the place I once considered home. It now looked like a tomb about to collapse, burying my past and burying Justin's future. But I won't look back, because ahead of me lies a brand new life for me and Lily. And there are no lies, no betrayal, only the most solid sense of control held firmly in my own hands. That Thanksgiving night became an eternal nightmare for the Miller family, but it was the starting point of my rebirth. The days that followed were like hitting the fast-forward button. Justin refused to sign the divorce agreement. He tried to play the emotional card, sending me lengthy emails reminiscing about how we first met, even having Jessica record videos of him crying his eyes out in front of Lily's photos to send to me. When all these tactics failed, he launched a frantic counterattack. He hired a cheap divorce lawyer who only knew how to bite like a rabid dog, trying to muddy the waters in court. At the mediation session before the hearing, his lawyer shamelessly proposed, given that Mr. Miller is currently disabled and has no source of income, according to the principle of fairness, not only should he not leave empty-handed, but Mrs. Miller as the higher-earning party, should also pay monthly spousal support. When we heard this demand, David and I exchanged a glance, both seeing a hint of absurd amusement in each other's eyes. Spousal support. David adjusted his tie, his tone contemptuous. If I were you, I'd worry first about how to deal with that accusation of squandering assets. The real showdown came a month later at the Manhattan family court. That day, I deliberately wore a dark gray Armani suit, my makeup refined yet cold. Justin, sitting in the defendant's seat, looked even more haggard than on Thanksgiving. That empty pant leg was particularly glaring under the bright courtroom lights. Rebecca didn't show a permer had it that after receiving the IRS investigation notice, she had moved out of that loft overnight, hiding like a rat. The judge was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes. Justin's lawyer tried to shift the focus to my cold-bloodedness. Your Honor, my client suffered misfortune abroad and was severely traumatized both physically and mentally. Yet the plaintiff, as his wife, not only failed to provide any emotional support but instead filed for divorce and transferred assets at this time. This completely violates the sacred vows of marriage. Objection. David stood up, his voice steady. The misfortune the defendant encountered was entirely caused by his own fraudulent behavior and extremely irresponsible risk-taking. This has nothing to do with the plaintiff. On the contrary, the plaintiff is the biggest victim in this marriage. Then, David submitted that evidence package heavy enough to break the camel's back. 5 years' worth of bank statements, proving Justin had been continuously funneling money to Rebecca. Those 2 surveillance videos, proving his coldness and deception when Anna was in labor. And an investigation report from the insurance company, detailing how Justin had forged business trip itineraries to meet his mistress. When those 2 videos played on the big screen in the courtroom, the entire gallery fell into dead silence. I watched myself on the screen, kneeling on the ground struggling in agony, still desperately trying to grab my husband's trouser leg even in despair. My heart no longer ached, only the indifference of a bystander remained. After watching the video, the judge took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. When she looked at Justin again, her eyes were filled with undisguised disgust. Mr. Miller, the judge's voice was ice cold. In my 30 years of career, I presided over countless divorce cases, but I must say, a husband as irresponsible and with such low moral standards as you is extremely rare. Regarding the division of property, given the defendant's serious dissipation of assets conduct, and the substantial amount involved, this court rules, Plaintiff Anna Miller is awarded ownership of the Long Island property, as well as 80 of all remaining cash assets under both parties' names. The defendant must return the $320,000 illegally transferred to a third party. If unable to return it, the amount shall be deducted from his remaining asset share. Regarding the request for alimony, it is denied. Regarding child custody, the plaintiff is granted full legal custody and physical custody. The defendant has visitation rights once a month, but visits must be conducted at a third-party supervision facility, and the cost shall be borne by the defendant. The moment the gavel came down, I heard Justin's anguished cries of breakdown. He tried to stand up and rush toward me, but lost his balance and fell heavily to the ground. His lawyer didn't help him up, and even his parents, that elderly couple sitting in the last row of the gallery, their faces ashen didn't move either. I stood up, straightened my skirt, and without sparing a glance at that pile of mud on the ground, walked straight out of the courtroom. Walking out of the courthouse doors, the Manhattan sunlight was a bit blinding. David handed me a cup of coffee. Congratulations, Anna. This is the most satisfying battle I've ever fought. Thanks. I took the coffee, even though it was hot. My fingertips still felt a bit cold. How's things going with Rebecca? The IRS has opened a case. David showed an amused smile. That foundation can't withstand any scrutiny. If she can't pay the back taxes and penalties, she's most likely going to end up behind bars. Also, I heard she got kicked out by her landlord because she couldn't afford the rent. Good. I nodded. Call off the people watching her. Someone like her isn't worth me wasting another cent on lawyer fees. My story with Justin had come to a complete end on a legal level, but the trouble he brought me didn't end there. A week later, I received a call from an unknown number. It was from a nursing home in New Jersey. Is this Ms. Anna Miller? This is Pine Grove Nursing Home. Your ex-husband, Mr. Justin Miller, was brought here after a suicide attempt, but his current guardians, his parents, refused to pay for further care, and left your contact information, saying you still have a conscience. I laughed out loud before they even finished. Sorry, I think you've got the wrong person. I interrupted the nurse. I no longer have any legal relationship with that man. As for conscience, you can tell his parents that I fed my conscience to the dogs on Thanksgiving. But, no buts, if they harass me again, I'll call the police. Good luck to you. After hanging up, I looked at Lily playing with building blocks on the carpet. She was almost 1 year old now, babbling, mumbling mama incoherently. I picked her up and kissed her milk-scented cheeks. Baby, from now on it's just the two of us. Are you scared? Lily giggled, reaching out her chubby little hands to grab my hair. At that moment, I felt an unprecedented sense of relief. It was like waking up from a long, suffocating nightmare drenched in cold sweat, covered in scars, but I had finally woken up. And some people were destined to sink into that nightmare woven from greed and desire, drowning until death. Time is the best plastic surgeon. It can smooth away the deepest scars, and also transform a person beyond recognition. 6 years for Manhattan. It was just a few tweaks to the skyline, but for me, it was a complete rebirth. I left Goldman Sachs and used the assets from my divorce settlement along with years of investment returns to start my own private equity fund. Though not large in scale, it was known in the industry for being steady yet ruthless. I sold that Long Island mansion full of memories and bought a penthouse with an expansive view in Tribeca from the terrace. I could watch the sunset over the Hudson River. As for Lily, she was already 6 years old. She looked a lot like me, with a pair of intelligent and alert big eyes. I sent her to the best private girls' school in the city, where they taught fencing and horseback riding, and more importantly, how to become an independent, strong woman who didn't depend on anyone. About her father, I never deliberately hid anything. Your daddy didn't die, I told her calmly when she asked why other kids had daddies, but he made some really bad choices and hurt us, so he lost the right to be family. It's like if you deliberately broke your favorite vase, you can't have it anymore. Lily nodded, seeming to half understand, and rarely brought it up after that. Until that weekend, I took Lily to the Metropolitan Museum of Art for an exhibition. It was a Monet special exhibition, packed with crowds. Lily wore an exquisite red coat, standing with her hands behind her back like a little adult, pausing in front of a water lilies painting. Suddenly, a commotion broke the silence of the gallery. Sir, no begging allowed here. Please leave immediately. The security guard's stern voice rang out. I instinctively turned my head and saw in a corner not far away, a raggedly dressed man in a worn-out wheelchair being pushed out by two security guards. He had a scruffy beard, and that once handsome face was now covered with weathering and grease. His right pant leg was still empty, and his left leg was covered with a dirty blanket, and on the handles of his wheelchair hung a few crude watercolor paintings, with a cardboard sign propped up beside them, scrawled in crooked letters, "Disabled veteran, homeless artist, please buy paintings to support." That figure, that silhouette, even if he turned to ashes, I would still recognize him. It was Justin. My heart skipped a beat, not from heartache, but from an indescribable sense of absurdity. The so-called elite who once wouldn't stay anywhere but five-star hotels and wouldn't drink anything but Evian water, had he really fallen so low that he was now begging at the museum entrance, pretending to be a veteran? Just then, Justin seemed to sense something too, and suddenly raised his head. Our eyes met. After 6 years, his gaze was cloudy and vacant, but the moment he saw me, it was as if a bolt of lightning had split through the chaos. He stared at me intently, then looked at Lily beside me, as delicate as a porcelain doll, and his lips began to tremble violently. Anna. He moved his lips without making a sound, but I understood the shape of that word. Immediately after, as if realizing something, he frantically tried to turn his wheelchair to escape, but in his panic, he knocked over a nearby display stand, scattering those crude paintings all over the ground. "So these are your works?" A sharp, caustic female voice suddenly rang out. Only then did I notice that the one pushing the wheelchair was actually Rebecca. She had aged a lot. The golden hair she once took such pride in was now dry and split, carelessly tied back. She wore a pilled sweatshirt, holding a plastic bag full of change, impatiently picking up the paintings from the ground. "So useless, can't even sit still in a wheelchair." Rebecca smacked Justin's shoulder while cursing. "Pick it up now, or you won't get dinner tonight." Justin shrank his neck like a frightened quail, letting her hit and scold him, with only numbness and fear in his eyes. The goddess he once held in his palms and treasured like a gem had now become his nightmare and overseer. The true love he once abandoned his wife and child to pursue had now devolved into nothing but the mutual torment of a poor couple where everything goes wrong. What an ironic closed loop. "Mommy, who's that?" Lily tugged at my hand, curiously watching the scene over there. "That uncle looks so pitiful." I withdrew my gaze, squatted down, and adjusted Lily's collar. "Those are two people who messed up their lives," I said to her with a smile. "Remember what they look like, baby. This is called the price of choices." "Then should we help them?" Lily asked innocently. I shook my head, stood up, and took her little hand. No, baby, some people dig their own abyss, and if you reach out to pull them, you'll only get dragged down with them. What we need to do is stay far, far away. Let's go. There's still Van Gogh's Starry Night to see up ahead. I held Lily's hand and turned to leave without looking back. From behind me came Justin's hoarse shout. Anna, Lily, I'm your dad, I'm your dad. The tourists around us cast sidelong glances, but I didn't stop, and Lily didn't look back either. Security quickly stopped his commotion and escorted him and Rebecca, along with their painting, out the gate. That night, I had a dream. I dreamed of that Thanksgiving years ago, Justin carving the turkey in the kitchen while I tossed a salad beside him. Everything was beautiful. But then the scene shifted. The turkey turned into rotting chunks of flesh, Justin became a skeleton, and I stood at the edge of a cliff, holding a pair of scissors, cutting without hesitation the rope that bound him. When I woke up, the sun was shining brightly outside the window. I walked out onto the terrace and took a deep breath of the morning air. The surface of the Hudson River sparkled in the sunlight, and the Statue of Liberty stood quietly in the distance. My phone buzzed. It was a message from David. Heard you ran into Justin yesterday. Need me to file for a restraining order? I smiled and replied, no need. Restraining orders are for threats. And now, he's just a joke. Yes, just a joke. A dark joke about betrayal, greed, and so-called true love. And I had walked out of that joke's firing range, standing in the light that belonged to me. Just when I thought there would never be any intersection between me and Justin again, fate seemed to feel this drama hadn't been played out enough, and sent me an unexpected gift. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon, and I was reviewing an IPO document in my office when the front desk notified me that a detective was looking for me. The visitor was a veteran officer from the NYPD, his expression grave. Ms. Miller, I'm sorry to disturb you. We received a report that your ex-husband, Mr. Justin Miller, passed away last night in a basement apartment in Brooklyn. Based on the scene investigation, the cause of death was carbon monoxide poisoning, preliminarily determined to be an accident caused by aging heating equipment. My hand holding the pen paused for a moment, and the ink spread into a small black dot on the paper. Dead. That man who once made me wish I were dead, and whom I hated to the bone, just died like this on a rainy night no one knew about. If it was an accident, why come to me? I put down my pen, my tone surprisingly calm. We've been divorced for 6 years. I think his current wife, or partner, should be the one to handle this. That Ms. Rebecca Bennett. The officer showed a complicated expression. She ran off with everything valuable in the house 3 days before the incident, and her whereabouts are currently unknown. We found a letter left by Mr. Miller at the scene, addressed specifically to you, and also, a document. The officer took out a sealed evidence bag from his briefcase and handed it to me. The envelope was filthy, stained with grease and unidentifiable marks. The handwriting was crooked and uneven. Clearly the writer's hands had been shaking badly. I didn't open it immediately, but looked at the officer. What's that document? It's a life insurance policy, the officer said. The beneficiary's name is Lily Miller. I froze. Life insurance. That man who couldn't even afford his medical bills and had to survive by begging at the museum entrance. Where did he get the money to buy insurance? After seeing the officer out, I put on gloves and opened the envelope. The letter was short, without any of those nauseating confessions or emotional manipulation, just a few dry lines. Anna, I know you won't bother reading my apologies. The biggest mistake of my life was thinking that bit of vanity was more important than you and Lily. These past few years, I actually secretly found a job dispatching night shifts for unlicensed cab drivers. Saved up some money, but it's definitely not enough to pay you back. I bought this insurance 3 years ago, when my leg hadn't completely rotted yet and I could still pass the physical exam. The premiums were money I secretly hid from Rebecca. The only beneficiary listed is Lily. This is the only thing I can give her now. Don't tell her how filthy I was. Just say, I went on a business trip somewhere far away. At the signature line, there was a string of characters smudged with fingerprints. I looked at that letter, my heart filled with mixed emotions. Not moved, and certainly not forgiveness, but a deep, deep sorrow. When a man is about to die, his words are kind, perhaps, but to me, this seemed more like a cheap form of self-redemption. He made a mess of his life, hurt the people around him until they were covered in wounds, and in the end tossed out this little bit of so-called inheritance, thinking he could buy a ticket to heaven. Too naive. I picked up the insurance policy and glanced at the coverage. $50,000. For me now, this wasn't even enough for 1 year of Lily's tuition, but for that disabled man who froze to death in the basement, this was probably everything he had. scraped together from between his teeth through countless sleepless nights. But that doesn't mean I'll forgive him. The damage was already done, the scars had healed, but they still ached faintly on rainy days. This $50,000 couldn't buy back all those nights I cried alone, nor could it buy back the fatherly love Lily never had. I put the letter and insurance policy back into the bag and called in my assistant. Give this to lawyer David and have him handle the claim procedures. Once the money comes through, deposit it directly into Lily's trust fund. Okay, boss. About the funeral, notify his parents. I turned my chair to look at the gray sky outside the window. They probably don't want to deal with it either, but he's their son. As for the expenses, deduct them from this $50,000, and give the rest to Lily. That weekend, I went to the cemetery. Not to attend the funeral, I would never show up for something like that. I went to visit my parents' graves. Standing before the tombstone, I gazed at my mother's young and gentle photo, feeling an unprecedented sense of relief surge through my heart. Mom, the man who made me repeat your fate is dead, I said silently in my heart. But I didn't fall like you did. I survived, and am living well. A gust of wind blew by, swirling up a few fallen leaves. I seemed to hear a sigh, or perhaps a soft chuckle, as I walked out of the cemetery. The sky cleared up, sunlight pierced through the clouds, spilling onto Manhattan's skyscrapers, gilding this steel forest with a golden edge. I took out my phone and called Lily. Sweetie, what are you doing? Did you finish your writing lesson? I did, Mom. The coach said my posture was perfect. Lily's cheerful voice came through, full of vitality. What are we having for dinner? A big feast. I smiled, my steps light. To celebrate. A new beginning. Yes, this was the true new beginning. No more hatred, no more resentment. Even that shadow serving as a cautionary tale had completely vanished. My life with Lily, like the sky after the rain, was clean, clear, and full of infinite possibilities. As for Justin, he was ultimately just a stumbling block in the long river of my life. Though he once made me fall until I was battered and bleeding, he also taught me how to bandage my wounds, how to stand more steadily, and how to walk further. From this perspective, perhaps I really should say, thank you. Thank you for your ruthlessness, it made me strong. Justin's funeral was so simple it was almost pathetic. Rumor has it his parents didn't even attend, they just sent Jessica to sign some papers and pick up that small box of ashes. According to David, the old couple sold their house in New Jersey 2 years ago and moved to a cheap retirement community in Florida, where they're still hiding from the loan sharks they owed money to for Justin's leg treatment. As for that Rebecca, she was later caught at the Mexican border on suspicion of international drug trafficking. That wasn't really surprising though, after all. For someone with no moral boundaries, nothing's off the table as long as it brings in quick cash. All of this was just background noise from the morning news to me, heard and forgotten, not stirring even a ripple of emotion. I was busy with something else now. Lily's 10th birthday party. Our penthouse in Tribeca had been decorated into a sea of pink and gold. Lily wore the little dress I had custom-made for her from Paris, surrounded by her friends like a little princess, looking at her confident, cheerful smile. I often felt a bit dazed, as if that baby who once cried in her swaddling clothes for lack of a father's love was just a phantom I had imagined. Anna, congratulations. A gentle male voice sounded from behind me. I turned around and saw James standing by the terrace. He was Lily's equestrian club partner and also a charming architect. Over the past 2 years, he had taken meticulous care of us. That kind of quiet, gentle care was completely different from the earth-shattering yet utterly hypocritical love I had experienced before. Thank you. I took the champagne he handed me and clinked glasses with a smile. Lily is such an amazing kid. James looked at Lily in the distance, his eyes full of affection. She's completely inherited all your good qualities. Is that so? I took a sip of wine, my gaze soft. I'd rather she be a bit smarter than me, at least when it comes to judging men. James was taken aback for a moment, then laughed. I believe she will. After all, she has the best role model. Just then, Lily ran over and grabbed James' hand. Uncle James, come on, we're about to cut the cake. You promised to help me make a wish. James glanced at me, his eyes questioning. I nodded and made a go-ahead gesture, watching their silhouettes, one tall, one small, walking toward the cake tower. I suddenly realized that so-called completeness doesn't have to take a specific form. It doesn't require having a dad and a mom and some fake family, as long as there's love, respect, and a sense of security. Even a single-parent family or a blended one can be the best kind of family. After cutting the cake, Lily ran back to my side and mysteriously pulled something out of her pocket. It was a crumpled piece of paper. Mommy, I found this in that old box, Lily said, blinking her big eyes. It says to Lily on it, so I think it should be for me, right? I took it and looked at it, and my heart skipped a beat. It was the letter Justin had left behind. I had clearly locked it away in the deepest part of the safe, but somehow this kid had found it at some point. Did you read what's inside? I tried to keep my voice calm. Yes, Lily nodded, her expression surprisingly serious. The person who signed it is Justin. He's my daddy, right? I was silent for a moment, then crouched down and looked straight into her eyes. Yes, he's your daddy. The letter says he went on a business trip to a faraway place. Lily tilted her head, as if thinking, but mommy, I know that's a lie. I looked it up in the school library, and that kind of letter is called a will. I was a bit surprised by how mature she was, and was about to explain something, but Lily reached out her little hand and touched my face. Mommy, I'm not sad, really. She flashed a bright smile. Even though he did wrong things, even though he wasn't a good daddy, he still thought of me in the end. Right, that's enough. Besides, she turned to glance at James, who was helping the kids divide the cake. I think things are pretty good now. I have the best mommy in the world, and that's enough. My eyes felt warm, and I pulled her into my arms. Yes, baby, that's enough. At that moment, I finally understood that all my worries, all my defenses, were actually unnecessary. Children are far stronger and more perceptive than we imagine. She didn't need me to weave a perfect lie. She just needed to know the truth, and then choose to forgive, or choose to forget. And no matter what she chose, I would stand behind her, being her strongest support. The night grew late, and the party ended. James politely said goodbye without saying anything extra, only giving me a deep look before leaving. Anna, if you ever need help with anything in the future, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I will. I nodded with a smile. After seeing everyone off, I stood alone on the terrace. The wind from the Hudson River blew past, carrying a hint of chill, yet it also cleared my mind. I took out the receipt for that $50,000 insurance policy, and that letter. This time, I didn't lock it away again. I took out a lighter and lit a corner of the letter. The flames danced in the night wind, consuming those belated confessions and humble love. The ashes scattered with the wind, eventually merging into the boundless night of New York. Goodbye, Justin. Goodbye. That unbearable past. I turned and walked inside, closing the floor-to-ceiling window. The heating inside was warm, and Lily was on the sofa unwrapping presents, letting out bursts of cheers. Life goes on, and it's only going to get better, because this time, the steering wheel is in my own hands.